22nd of June, Rabbi Moore, Parsha Hashavua.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, I was just sitting here. I didn't see that you had connected.
I see I've been already about 12 minutes. Okay, so 5 to 1 I came in. Okay, let's go. I would like to skip just till the next chapter 20. Chapter 20, Pasuk 1.
V'yavo b'nei Yisrael kol ha'edah midbar tzin b'chodesh harishon v'yeshev ha'am ha'b'kodesh v'namas V'tamas Miriam Vatika there Sham. The children of Israel, the entire assembly arrived at the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people settled in Kadesh. Miriam died there, and she was buried there.
Okay.
So it says, Kol ha'edah, the entire assembly, Edah ha'shlema, the complete assembly. Shekvar Mesu Mesei Midbar. For those who were to die in the wilderness had already died.
Right.
Ve'elu fair shu l'chaim. And these were set apart for life.
So what it's interesting what the expression over here, Peishul Achaim, because the Gemara says in Tainus, there's a day, the 15th of Av is considered like a mini holiday. In fact, the Gemara actually says, Ein Yomim Tovim Yisrael Tu B'Av Yom Kippurim. We know greater Yomim Tovim for Klal Yisrael than 15th of Av and Yom Kippurim, because that is when the young girls would go out to the vineyards and the men would come there as well and choose for themselves brides. Right? Very interesting shidduch system they had then. Okay, I'm not going to that now, but anyway, one of the reasons given why the 15th of Av is a holiday is because that is when the those who were to die in the desert finished dying. In fact, the Gemara says really it wasn't on the 15th because it happened the year before. Because what happened was they in the 40th year, that last year, those who were between 20 and 60 dug their graves, okay, as they had done for the past 38 years. They dug their graves and they all lay down in their graves on the night of Tisha B'Av. And lo and behold, the next morning, everybody got up nobody died. So they thought they made a mistake. So the next night they did it again, and the next night again. And the Maisa came out till they finally came to the middle of the month, the 15th, they saw the full moon, and still nobody had died. So they realized that the Gzeira had already ended. But the Maisa, what I is the great I did actually the previous year. And those who now had dug their graves, even though they had been between 20 and 60 when the time of the Chet of the Meraglim. So Rashi explains that those were the ones who had turned 20 in the second year of the Jewish people in the desert. And at the time of Rosh Hashanah of that year, they were not yet 20, and therefore they were not included in the decree of those to die in the desert. But the people who the 20-year-olds who were then, they didn't realize it then. Anyway, Akoponim Lemaisa, the last people to die through the Gezerah it actually died not in the 40th Tisha B'Av, the Tisha B'Av of the 40th year, but actually in Tisha B'Av of the 39th year, because in Tisha B'Av of the 40th year, nobody died. Okay, so that's the Chayra. We're over here. We're over here. Here, actually, we're going to see, it's interesting. Chazal says it's a tradition that Miriam died actually on the 10th of Nisan, which was exactly a year prior to their going into Eretz Yisrael. They crossed over the Jordan on the 10th of Nisan of the 40th year, and it was the end of the 40th year, and Miriam died at the end of the 39th year. Okay.
But Tamas Sham Miriam died there. Lama nis mecha mitas Miriam. Why is the passage of Miriam's death juxtaposed the Parashas Para Aduma to the passage of the red cow? The Mar Lach to tell you Ma Karvanos Mi Chaprim, just as an offering will atone.
Like korbanos, right? Sacrifices, offerings act as an atonement.
Af misas tzadikim micha peres. So too does the death of a righteous atone.
Right. Now, where do we have a korban over here? The Parah Aduma, is Parah Aduma considered a korban?
Must be.
Sorry?
It must be, according to Rashi, he's saying the Parah Aduma is a carbon.
Okay, so the Mefarshim dwell on this. 1 second. Yeah. I have a quote in the note over here. The Maharai, who was an early commentator on Rashi, explained that just like the Parah Aduma, which is called a chatos, it's called a sin offering, as Rashi mentioned before in Pasuk Tes. Okay, that is called the main. Okay, so even though it's not actually a sacrifice which was offered on the altar, but it is called a sacrifice, it's called a offering, sin offering, so too Mrs. Tzadikim, even though it's not mamish like a sacrifice, but it is also acts as an atonement. Okay, Lamaisa, it's interesting. Why is it that we said we have the death of the righteous as acts as an atonement? So there's an interesting medrash. Actually, I think it's in Parshas Vayero. Discusses there the 10 tests which Abraham Avinu had. Is that the Kodesh Baruch Hu brings trials and tribulations upon the righteous for 3 different reasons. One is to test their strength. Number 2 is to not just to test their strength, but even to stretch the tzaddikim to further how should we say, to reach further limits that they can. Okay, that's number 2. And the third thing is that sometimes a generation, the whole Jewish people, have to go through a certain level of suffering. And Kodesh Baruch Hu puts it upon the tzaddikim because the tzaddikim are the ones who are the strongest spiritually, who can bear that suffering. So in the same vein, the Kodesh Baruch Hu will actually take away the tzaddik in order to have the tzaddik die, in order that this will, shall we say, cause the people to be aroused and awakened and turn to do tshuva. Okay. For the moment, that's what I'm thinking. They might say there's a lot more can be spoken about on this Inyan, that the tzaddikim, death of tzaddikim, acts as an atonement. Okay, let's go weiter.
What's the Parsha now?
Sorry?
What's the Parsha now?
Pasuk, we're still on Pasuk Aleph of chapter 20. Okay, Thomas Miriam.
She too died through a kiss.
Now, where does Rashi get that from? I don't know. So the Tzifsei Chachamim says, because we learn it out of a Gzeira Shaba, analogy to the death of Aaron. It says Shom, by Thomas Shom Miriam. So it says here, and it says by Aaron also by Thomas Shom. Okay, and there by Aaron it says he died al pi Hashem. Okay. Yeah, continue. Sorry.
Umipnei ma lo ne'amar ba al pi Hashem. And why, or so, why did it not say of her, she died by the mouth of Hashem? She'eno derech kavod shel ma'ala. That it is not
Respectful.
way of honor,
It's not a respectful way.
the high one.
Right. And that's what Rashi says. But Aaron Nema, but regarding Aaron it says,
Al pi Hashem.
right.
He ela mas'eh.
Right, it means at the end, a few weeks' time, I'm going to read that. End of this book, end of this Chumash. In fact, Aaron's yahrzeit, the day of his death, is the only day mentioned in the Torah of the date mentioned in the Torah of somebody's passing. The only time it's mentioned is Aaron's passing is mentioned. The date of Aaron's passing is mentioned in the Torah. It's the only one. Even Moshe Rabbeinu's the day Moshe Rabbeinu died is not mentioned in the Torah. The day Miriam died is not mentioned in the Torah. And as I said, Chazal say it happened on the 10th of Nisan. So this was actually a whole year before they entered Eretz Yisrael. Okay, Pasuk Beis, Meah.
Okay. Let's see. It says below Hayamayim La'eda Vayikahalu al Moshe v'al Aaron. So there was no water for the congregation, and they, I guess, met. Assembled.
Sorry?
They assembled with Moshe
They
and Aaron.
congregated literally against Moshe and against Aaron.
Oh, against an uprising.
Right.
Okay, so Rashi, below haya mayim leida. There was no water for the assembly. Mikan shekol arba'im shana. So from here, that this is the all of the 40 years in desert. Hayalahem habe'er. They had a well, actually the well, habe'er, bizachut Miriam, through the merit of Miriam.
Right. There were three major miracles that happened to the Jewish people on an ongoing basis in the desert. They had the man, right? The manna.
Mm-hmm.
They had the clouds of glory which protected them, and they had water. And each one was in the schus of, I think, Moshe, in the man was in the schus of Moshe Rabbeinu.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it says that the day Moshe died, that was the last time they received man.
Oh.
And it lasted for them for more than 30 days. Actually, it lasted for 40 days. Because the man stopped on Zain Adar, and they were able to eat of the produce of the land on the 16th of Nisan, which was 40 days later.
Mm.
Okay. Okay, let's see Pasuk weiter. Lou, Pasuk Gimel.
Vayarev ha'am im Moshe vayomru lemor v'lu gavanu
Gavanu. Velu Gavanu. It's Mil'el. Okay. Velu Gavanu bigva achenu lifnei Hashem.
The people quarreled with Moshe and spoke up, saying, "If only we had perished by the demise of our brothers before Hashem."
Right.
So Rashi says, "If only we had perished." Halavai shegavanu. Would that we had perished.
Rashi, yeah. Rashi's saying the lu, Rashi's explaining what the word lu means is were it halavai.
So in other words, it's saying we wish it would have happened.
Right.
Bigva achenu. By the demise of our brothers. Bimitas achenu. By the death of our brothers. Badevar. Badever. Through a plague.
Right.
Lamed. This teaches us shemisas sama, that death by thirst, muguna mi mena, is uglier than death by the plague.
It's more unpleasant.
More unpleasant than death through plague.
Right.
Bigva.
Rashi said words. What is this word? Gava. Now, let me just point out to you, very often you have what's called a cohortative form, not cohortative, a gerund form, which means that you use a noun to denote a verb. How do I say it? Give me the answer.
Like he housed him.
Yeah, no, I'm saying.
The people housed
I'm using the way you would use in English, the coming of the Bnei Yisrael to the land. At the coming of the Bnei Yisrael to the land, which when they came to the land, right? But in Hebrew, you use that quite often, rather than using a verb, use a gerund form which denotes a noun. It's a verb in a noun form. But here Rashi is pointing out that this is not a gerund form. The gvar doesn't mean at the passing of at the dying of our brethren. That means with the death of our brethren. That's what Rashi is pointing out. Bigvar shem davahu, k'moi b'misas achenu. Below yitochen lefarsh, you cannot explain it keshemesu achenu, when our brethren died. She'im kein hoyeloni nokat bigvoya achenu. So the word bigvoya is a gerund form. Okay, but bigva achenu is a noun. Gva is a regular noun meaning the death of our brethren. Means had we died with the same form of death that our brethren died, who died in the Badever, in the plague of pestilence. Okay, so that's what Rashi is pointing out. The Gva is a shem double, it's a noun. With the death of our brethren. We cannot explain it as kishemesu achenu, because then it should have said not bigva achenu, but bigvoya achenu, because givoya is a gerund form. With the dying, or it literally means with the dying of